there, Foo listeners, it's me, Leafstar, and I'm the narrator of the FooStories podcast. I'm sorry for the lateness of this week's episode. I've had a cold and my voice sounded horrible yesterday. I really don't you want to hear that. So if I do cough or something, that'd be why. This is our third episode of the FooStories podcast, and in that honor, we will have 3 stories this week. Our first is the next chapter in our series story. Then we will have an introduction of a story for this new story we'll be starting. And finally, we have the next part of the story, New School Year, New Ashley, that we started last week. Alright, we should get started now. Our first story this week, as always, comes from the third member of our FooStories team, Bright Clan. This is the third chapter of her book, Living an Outcast. It is titled The Red Wolf's Story. Here it is. It was smart to use the moss to cover the entrance, and to live by an oasis where you will be able to get water, plus living in a cave where you can stay cool even though it may be hot outside, he reasoned. Those 3 reasons were the main reasons Jade had chosen here to live. After Fang said that, they both lay down on the cool floor. "My name's Jade," she said, as she remembered she hadn't told him earlier. "I was born into the pack of the sun. Our teller had a dream saying I would be in danger to the pack, and our leader, Darius, kicked us out," she told him. She didn't want to draw it out. "Us?" he asked. "My mother, Keela, and I," Jade said. She looked down at the ground, remembering her mother. She missed her dearly. "Where is she now?" Fang asked. Jade growled under her breath. "She died of illness as soon as we were exiled," she growled. "I'm sorry," Fang said, looking away then back, quickly enough that Jade barely noticed. "Enough about my life. What about yours, Fang? How did you end up here?" she asked. "I didn't end up here. I was born here. There used to be a pack of vicious wolves that lived here. They called themselves Blood Pack. I was born into their pack. They trained their pups really young to be killers. First they would start us on snakes or lizards, and then move on to practicing on other pups. We were taught not to show mercy. Not all the pups survived training. Many died because they were too young when they started. Admittedly, I used to be the model pup in the pack. I fought and killed many creatures, even a wolf they matched to get me. I never lost a fight. That's why I don't have any scars. And wolves that lost a fight got a scar from the opponent. A nick in the ear, a scratch in the eye, and other places. When I grew up, I started thinking of all the wolves I had hurt. It turns out I wasn't the only one. Quite a few other young wolves have been thinking about the same lines, and were starting to form a small army to take down the rest of the pack. I soon joined them. With me on their side, we all knew we could win and start a huge war within our pack. My side eventually won, but many wolves died. After that, the remaining wolves scattered. Some running into forests, some just running. I decided to stay in the wastelands, but I never saw any of the other wolves again," he finished. "Wow, you've had a rough life, huh?" Jade asked. "Yeah, guess so," Fang muttered, glancing down at his paws. Jade could see the pain in his eyes, as though he was reliving all the terrible things that had happened to him in his mind. "How about you stay here tonight? I bet you could use a nice cool place to sleep," she said. She looked up and smiled ever so slightly at Fang. "I'd like that," Fang said, and with that, we both fell asleep into a sound sleep, curled up, side by side. End of chapter 3. Our second story this week is not really a story yet. We are going to read the introduction to Running Wild by Arctic Creatures. We will read the first chapter next week. Here's the introduction to Running Wild. Usually, wild horses are left alone because they're wild. But these wild horses weren't left alone by humans, or as they called them, uprights. Let me start off by saying their names and what they look like. Bruno is a beautiful brown-colored stallion. He's the leader of the small herd. Patch is a red-colored pimento with white spots on his back. He was once the leader, before Bruno took over. Now he just follows behind Bruno. He's very old and wise. Frost is a graceful white-colored mare. She always can come up with a plan. And finally, Misty is a shy, gray-colored mare. She sticks close to the back of the herd and is very much like a loner. Most of the time, the herd gallops up into the hills of Maryland. Just feeling the wind brush against their mane makes them want to run forever. But it's not so easy, being a wild horse. You probably think wild horses stand and eat grass all day. They don't. Some of the time of the day, they are fleeing from predators such as coyotes, which are normally in a pack, uprights, and large dogs that chase them. But they do eat part of the day, too. They enjoy eating flowers, grass, leaves, and weeds, but the worst part of the day for the wild horses is when night falls. They have to find a shelter that hides them from the wind and rain, even sometimes snow, and of course, hides them from predators. Their usual spot to find shelter is near the mountains, where there are rocks to hang over the side, a perfect place for them to sleep. One of the horse's enemy isn't even alive, the mud pit. It's at the bottom of one of the hills. Once, they saw a horse rider galloping up the hill at full speed, and when they got to the top, the horse wouldn't stop running. They ran down the hill into the mud pit. The rider managed to get out, but he didn't get his horse out. He just kept mumbling, "Stupid horse, got my best clothes muddy." Then he left his horse. We watched from a distance until the man was gone, then the herd went slowly down the hill. At the time, our herd only consisted of 3 horses: Bruno, Frost, and Patch. This is where we found Misty. We pulled her out by the rope that the man kept pulling to control her. When she got out, she was tired, and she had hurt her leg. We cared for her, bringing her food and water, and finally, her leg healed. Then, she became Misty. Our third and final story this week comes from Queen Random. Her story is called New School Year, New Ashley, and we read the first part of her story last week. When we left off, our main character, Ashley, was talking to Drake, the most popular guy in school. Let's find out what happens next. Drake just looked at her. "I'm in 7th. I'll see you around." Drake walked away. Sarah looked at her friend. "Ashley, what were you doing? He'll never go out with you, and he's in 7th and we are in 6th. Ashley was just staring at Drake as he walked over to his friends. Sure, his friends were cute too, but not as near cute as Drake. "Ashley, snap out of it! Drake and Olivia are together." Ashley looked over at Sarah. "Do you mean Olivia Pott from her grade?" "Yeah, they got together at Drake's party last night." Ashley was confused. "How do you know all of this?" Sarah said. "Well, Olivia texted me last night." Ashley got really mad. "Why do you have Olivia's number?" Sarah almost got scared of her friend. "Olivia got my number because of when I was dating Drake's friend Trey." Ashley ignored her friend and stormed off into homeroom. "Ashley, wait, I can explain." But Ashley was already in her seat by the time Sarah caught up to her. Sarah sat down in a seat right next to Ashley. Sarah pulled out a piece of paper from her bag and started scribbling words under it. She put it on Ashley's desk. Ashley opened it and read, "Ashley, I'm so sorry. It's not my fault she texted me, but in a way you still have a chance. Drake would hurt himself if he stayed with Olivia too long. Smiley face." Ashley smiled and pulled out her pencil and wrote, "Yeah, true. Drake will probably break up with her in a couple of weeks. LOL." Ashley put it on Sarah's desk. Sarah read it and put it in her bag just as the teacher was walking by. "Welcome, everyone. I am Mrs. Reg. I will be your homeroom teacher for the rest of this school year. I do not allow gum and I hate cell phones. I want no talking unless I call on you. Understand?" Ashley and Sarah looked at each other with a scared look. The whole class then said, "Yes, Mrs. Reg." Then the bell rung. of all, due to little interest in the Member of the Week and Question of the Day segments, we'll be cutting them for a few weeks. In the meantime, we will have a contest. This contest will last until the end of September. The challenge? Make the FooStories a new logo. We will put this as our profile picture on YouTube and use it in our show each week. It must have my username, LeafStar, and Tiny Cupcake written on it along with the FooStories. There must also be a book of some sort on it. The winner will receive a prize. You can see an example on the screen as this podcast goes on. Also in the news this week, next week I will be reading one of my own stories. It involves my Warriors clan, but I will also read it on air. We would like to have a moment of silence at this point for all of those who lost their lives on 9/11/2001. 9/11, yes, was on Saturday, but we decided to show tribute to them today as well. Please take this moment to remember those who gave their lives for their country. Thank you. Remember to tune in next week for more FooStories. This is LeafStar, the FooStories narrator, closing the book.